Alrighty, morning tea break. So let's crack on with part two of this solve. Part one will be linked somewhere up above, which was an introduction to beginners particularly. So it was, I really went through the clues in close detail. So I'll probably try to continue the same actually. So 15 across was about where we got to. Compromise when describing ham or chicken sandwich we hear. 4236. I can see what this is going to be now. So when you've got a lot of words like this, it's most likely an expression. And we've got a few letters in place. If there's a three-letter word somewhere and it happens in this case to start with T, that's most likely the. It doesn't have to be, but it probably will be. And so this is a kind of, so there's a few things going on here. There's this we hear, which is what's called a homophone indicator, and that says that we're going to take some other things, maybe another word or words, and spell them differently. So for example, if there was the word fate, which can be spelled as F-A-T-E or F-E-T-E, we might it might refer to the F-A-T-E in the clue, but the we here is telling us to use the alternate spelling F-E-T-E. So it's if you overheard something and you misunderstood which word it was. And but this is also a kind of figurative clue. This comes up from time to time. Describing ham or chicken sandwich. So it's kind of hard to explain this without just putting it in, and you'll see what's happening. You may have already gotten there, but on the point of definition, because the we here is almost certainly a homophone indicator, that means the definition must be at the other end of the clue, and in this case it's going to be compromise. So we need an expression that means compromise, and it is meet in the middle. Now what's that got to do with a ham sandwich? Well, if that meat was spelt with an A, so it would still sound the same, meat in the middle would be describing a ham or a chicken sandwich. And that we here is what's telling us to swap the spelling of that initial word. So you'll see them come up. It's worth looking at. The question mark often indicates something a little bit unusual happening in the clue, especially figurative clues like this. So that's worth checking out. Also, if you're doing a difficult cryptic like DA, then question mark clues are often ones that you might want to breeze past in the beginning because they can be much harder. Now, let's try 18. Smiled when leading gourmand, I don't know how you say it in English, gourmand, cooked dinner. So my first thought when I saw smiled and that this had a D on the end is that this is likely an ED word, and that gives it makes it likely that this is a verb in the past tense, and we've got smiled, which is a verb in the past tense, but we also have cooked dinner, so it could be either end. Leading gourmand is going to be the first letter probably of this word here, the G. And so yeah, this is going to be, if we put the G at the start and we try to think of a word for smiled, we might get grinned. And then for the rest of the clue, so cooked dinner. Cooked here is a pretty common anagram indicator, so we're going to cook these letters up, which is to say rearrange them to give the rind at the end there, and that gives our final answer of smiled. And when here is just acting as a joining word, it doesn't actually have a purpose in terms of wordplay or definition. You won't see like too many. Well, in a well-written cryptic, you'll see very few words that serve no purpose. The only ones you'll really see are when they're just joining one half of the clue to the other for the purpose of grammatical sense. But you won't have extraneous words that serve no purpose. Like this word gourmand is never going to mean nothing, unless you're solving one from the Herald Sun. I don't like their crosswords, and they often are just nonsense. Disembarked and escaped punishment 3-3. So 2 words. I know the answer to this. I'm just trying to think. This is what's called a double definition, where rather than having just one word being the definition, you've actually got both ends of the clue are definitional. So there's no word play as such. You just need an expression that means disembarked and an expression that means escaped punishment. And what we're looking for with that G in place is got off. So to escape punishment is to get off, and to disembark is to get off. And one thing with a clue like this that would, if I didn't have any letters, might have been, if I didn't have that G, it might have been a bit harder, but often you'll have, if you see a word like this, which is a negative kind of word, and then you realize that escaping punishment also has this kind of sense of, well, I don't know how to express this, but it kind of would strike me that if we've got an expression with 2 3-letter words, it's quite likely that one of them, or the second one particularly, is going to be off or out, because of escape having a natural association with going out, and disembarked having a negative connotation, which is often indicated by an out word. So that's just a little tip. 24 across. And actually, just looking at that one quickly, 18 down. Yeah, and I suppose like it stands out as a double definition just because none of the words kind of give any clear sense of being wordplay. You can't imagine punishment really being abbreviated to a small letter or a couple of letters. Escaped doesn't seem to be indicating anything like rearranging or anything like that. So when you don't see too many words that look like they could do anything else, it may be a double definition. And they tend to be short clues, often just 2 words. So 24 across. Charge Tesla unit. 20, that's, I was going to say, I think Tesla is abbreviated to T, which I assume that means that T is going to go at the end, and that this first, oh yeah, okay. So these first 3 letters are going to be a word for charge, and that word is fee as the noun, and a unit is feet in the sense of feet and inches. So nice compact clue, that one. Tesla is a good example of a word that abbreviates to a single letter. That one's not so well known. I don't think the average person would recognize that as an abbreviatable word, but it comes up a bit in Cryptics. But there are much more common ones like morning for AM and a bunch of things like that. And yeah, so there we go. 16 down. Airline meets air crime. I think, yeah, so meets air here is an anagram. The indication for that is the word crime. I'll come back to that. Definition being airline. So if we rearrange these words, these words or letters, and given the existing mask that we've got in place, we might get to the answer Emirates being our airline. This kind of crime as an anagram indicator is a little bit controversial. People tend to stretch what words they consider appropriate as indicators for anagrams. Crime is a bit dubious. You know, it's true that crime involves, you know, things being done that are bad, and so there's this very loose thing about, you know, badness or incorrectness, but it's a bit of a stretch. So you got to watch out for that kind of thing. That will happen. Also, in certain camps, there are some camps within the cryptic world, they would not agree at all with the use of a noun as an anagram indicator. It must always be a verb or an adjective. So that's another point. Australian setters tend to be more liberal and allow things like this to go through. 21 across. Model managed resort, accommodation fee clear. So, a bit of cryptic ease here. This is one of the more ridiculous ones, and you might think, well, I'm never going to be able to learn cryptics, but this is just one of a small handful of very, very niche cryptic abbreviations that you will come to learn. Model very often means the letter T, and that is because of the Model T Ford. I believe there is another model of Ford, I forget the letter now, and I think I have seen that used as well, but basically model will very, very often mean T. It's crazy, but because it comes up so often, you won't forget it. You'll see it again and again. Although I think that setters are probably trying to move away from using it because, one, it's too easy now for good cryptic setters, solvers, and also because it is so it's kind of outdated and obscure. Like it doesn't seem reasonable that a person would associate that word with the letter T, whereas something like, morning and AM, that's just a common language thing that we would know. But being that is probably a T, and we've got a T here, that's a good start. Now managed comes up a lot. We want a short synonym for managed, a 3-letter synonym for managed that's going to go in this place here. And then resort accommodation fee. I know the answer, I'm just trying to figure out the wordplay for that. But having established that model is probably T, then we know that the definition comes at the other end, so probably the word clear. And especially if you know what this 3-letter word for managed is, which is ran, like if you managed a business, you ran the business, then you can start to see a word for clear is going to be transparent. Now, accommodation fee is rent, so I'm wondering about this PA, which is apparently represented by resort. Resort can be resort, which is an anagram indicator in some cases, but it doesn't look like that here. I don't know, is PA maybe an actual place that's a resort? PA also means per annum. That comes up from time to time. So you might see the word yearly in the clue, meaning PA in the answer. Quite confused by that one. Comments to clarify that. I might also ask LR what he means by that. He's on Twitter. You'll see his Twitter handle in the description. So let me do a couple more clues before returning to the grindstone. 22 down. Just opened 3 cards on 3rd birthday. Well, I'm not quite sure the answer just yet, but again, looking for words that might do things. 3rd as a kind of selection indicator. So you say we're taking the 3rd letter of birthday, for example. That would give us an R, and we might imagine that R is probably at the end. May not be. There might be something else in the clue telling us to put the R inside of something else. But meanwhile, open can be an indicator for the opening letter, so that would be the T, but we've got an A at the beginning here. I'm just wondering about transparent. That seemed very correct, except I couldn't understand PA. So that A could be wrong. Anyway, let's have a look. Open 3 cards. Was it just... So my question would be, where is the A going to come from? Well, maybe, I wonder if just open is the definition. I'm just wondering, 3 cards could be 3 playing cards, and the A would be the ace. So you could have like king, queen, K, Q, J, etc. They're not great they're not great letters for making a short word. On 3rd birthday. I'm quite confused by that clue. Normally just is something like fair, or in the sense of, yeah, reasonable, or only in the sense of solitary thing. I wonder if transparent isn't right, but rent was so right. Let's have a look if we can get this letter and see, and I'm going to have to get going. 25. The French canister. This will be a nice one to another good example clue. The French canister with mad Christian symbol, 5-5. So I think that the definition is this, maybe just symbol, but the reason for that is that the French is there, and this comes up all the time to indicate the word for the in French. There's a few words, there's le, la, and les, and technically L on its own as well, but that doesn't usually happen in cryptics. So most often it's le or la. And then canister with mad. Well, mad is going to be a synonym of cross, and that obviously makes sense with Christian symbol. And we're starting with le or la. I don't know what this is. And then, oh, is it, maybe canister is just going to be abbreviated to the word can, or shortened to the word can. Is there something like this? Or this? I don't know those words. What else could canister mean? This is an example as well where the word the would not be there if it wasn't part of the wordplay. So, because you don't need it to be there for the sentence to make sense. So the fact that it's there means that you are doing something with it. And the fact that it's next to French means you're almost certainly using le, la. But I don't know what the cross is. I feel like it must be something like le can cross, le can cross or something, but I've never heard of that. So I might come back. I'm not going to have to go back to work, but we'll come back and try some of these other words. At least if we can get that letter there, we might be on to what canister is referring to, which I think is just going to be can. And hopefully we can rethink 22. Sometimes if you just get stuck on a clue, it's good just to come back to it later when your brain has let go of all of its incorrect thinking and it suddenly just jumps out at you. Anyhow, part 2 done. I'll see you all again soon.